Good afternoon. This is Dr. Moore, and I'm looking forward to explaining to you the three dimensions of business, and in particular, how to analyze your profile. So, if you would turn with me, you can take a look at the PowerPoint there. I'm going to be talking about the management profile, the cultural profile, and the ethics profile. I'm also going to use myself as an example so you can see that. This all is predicated on the work from your Excel spreadsheet. And if you open up the three-dimension survey, you'll see at the bottom here you have a copyright tab. Then you have a self-assessment. This is where you would put your self-assessment. And you're scoring a number here in each of these boxes from 1 to 7, 1 being almost never and 7 being almost always. These first 20-some questions are the management profile, and then the 18 or 20 next questions are the cultural profile and the ethics profile. So those of you who are taking 501, you really only need to do the first 20. You're welcome to do all of them. Those of you who are in 560 or international business, you need to do all of them. And you actually should be able to correlate your management scores to the first class, which was the 501 class. And so you'd be able to see over the period of your MBA if you've been able to change or to move in your self-assessment. Now again, self-assessment is limited by the fact that it's ourselves and we only know a certain amount about ourselves. But that being the case, it's helpful to understand some of the components of the self-assessment, and that's what we're going to do today. You have the peer tab, and that's again for 501 if you're comparing your peer. Your benchmark is the expectation of your job. It's not your supervisor's evaluation of yourself. It's your supervisor expectation of behavior. So again, that also is used in 501. Then you have in 501 the 360 results there that come in a graph. But for our piece, what we're interested in the profiles, things come in either self results. You see that tab self results. When you put your scores in the self assessment tab, these all come and come out here in giving you your assessment. Then you come over to the profiles tab, and I'll walk you through that piece as well. Again, my example, I put in my self-assessment, and you see here some of the scores on the ethical dimension, culture dimension, and management dimension, and the graphs that come out. I'm going to take each one of them one step at a time so that you can see how I did that. The management dimension really comprises of 4 main quadrants, and these 4 quadrants are based on this axis from your y-axis, which is everything above here is open system, and everything below is closed or low score on the open system. Things on the x-axis from the middle to the right would be your high HR score, and then again to the left would be your low HR score. And then the 2 other components can be found from the low ops score in the I don't know how to shaded with the lines there, low ops, but none of those in the high ops. So that's on both sides of the x-axis. And then also you have in rows, you have monitor and the low monitor. And you see there the low monitor being shaded gray, and same thing with below the y-axis there. Also the low monitor is in gray. So that kind of gives you what I'm doing is I'm taking the 4 different dimensions in management and kind of organizing them or categorizing them in different buckets. And so this way we can think of different quadrants. So in the top left you have your artist quadrant, which is really your people who are very creative, so their open system is very high, and low HR, so they're more working by themselves. So that would be the typical, what I dub the artist. And then you have the open system, so very creative individual that work well with other people. So I gave that the entrepreneurial profile. And then you have quadrant 3, the coalitionist. So doesn't want to see change very much, but works well with people. So very good at developing coalitions or groups around different things, setting or keeping status quo. And then finally the low open and the low HR, that's maybe a little bit more the dogmatic, or the person that's by themselves saying, well, I don't like change, don't want change. So some of those these things are good. So there's really not one best way. I think what's important is the company that you work in, that your management skills are valued there. Because if you have an entrepreneur in a very dogmatic culture, you're going to have problems, and then same with the artist and the coalitionist. So these really are predicated on the organizational culture that you find yourself in. And here I have a couple definitions that will help you. For me, what you see here in my score when you go into your Excel spreadsheet, you see here low 1 to 4 would be the low HR, and then the high HR is 5 to 7. And mine's kind of on the borderline, but 5.5. So I would be more on the high side here. So I would be somewhere in here in this quadrant, or in that half, in the right half of the profile. Then I have low and high open system. My score was 6.6, so that's high over here. So again, high open would be here, this open system. So I can see that I'm in quadrant 2. Now in order to find out where I am in quadrant 2, then I keep on going down here. Am I low or high in operations? My score is 6.3, so I'm high in the operations. So that puts me either in P1 or P2. And then finally, am I low or high on the monitor? I have a 6.0, or I gave myself a 6.0. So I perceive myself high on the monitor. So that would mean that here in monitor or low monitor, I would be a P1. So my profile score, self-assessed, would be P1. Now, one of the things that I would like you to have, if you're interested, in each of the quadrants you can think about development of your skill set to go from lower functioning, which is the N2, O2, N3, O3, to a higher functioning piece in those quadrants. But we can talk about that as we go in the course. Now let's take a look at dimension number 2, which is culture. And here in the culture component you see again the same type of presentation with the 4 quadrants, and with a definition to these quadrants. Now if you take my score in the individualist collectivist, so individualist would be the low score, 1 to 4, I scored a 2.0, so that's very much on the individualist. Now the individualist is on the x-axis, so on the left side there of the 0, or so individualist. And then hierarchy or participative, so hierarchy 1 to 4, participative 5 to 7, I scored a 6. So I'm on the participative side. And so that would be down here on the lower end. So individualist and participative, so I'm in here somewhere. And then risk and structure, I scored a 1. So I have high tolerance for risk. and so that would put me in the risk would he be here in the bottom, either in the H4 or I4, and then relational versus task, and this is what Hofstede uses in the feminine masculine, but they updated it because they didn't want to use feminism, so or have those words used, so that it's more relational versus task. And so relational here, I'm more on the 4.7, so I'm going to say I'm probably more on the relational, even though I'm kind of close to the 5. So relational is on the right side here. So task and relational, I'm over here. So that would put me in either I4 barely or the H4. So I would score myself, actually I should put I4 here instead of H4. So it gives me that profile here. Now what's interesting is I did an assessment of the Hofstede culture and for countries, and so I went in and found out what Hofstede research did with each of these countries, and you can kind of see the different countries I put in. So here this kind of constitutionalist, India, France, Slovak, and Poland. Then down here in the participative individualist, you have the U.S., Israel, Italy, Hungary, Germany. And so here's that quadrant. Then down here, collectivist but participative, South Korea, Iran, Jamaica, Japan. A lot of these in the news today. And then finally, probably the opposite of the United States, here you have the collectivists and high hierarchy, which is Hong Kong, China, Philippines, Mexico, Brazil, and some others. So that's an interesting way to kind of think about or to see some of the differences and maybe some of the stressors that would happen. Then the final profile is the ethics profile, and again, this is the same idea with the 4 dimensions. To put 4 values in the ethical dimension, we added the component with high team or low team, or ineffective team versus effective team. And again, here using my self-assessment, you see in the deception truth, the same idea. The lower scores, 1 to 4 is deception, 5 to 7 is truth. So I perceived myself a 6, I ranked myself a 6, so I would be in the truth category, which is the upper positive side of the y-axis. And then you have fear vision, and I scored myself a 6, so that would be in the vision, which is 5 to 7. So vision there, again, that's these two, so it would be in this top row. And then self-centered versus service, I scored myself a 6. Again, that's in the 5 to 7. So that would be over here. So I would be either in C1 or D1. And then finally, ineffective versus effective, I have a 6.4 on my self-assessment. So that would put me in the Team Plus there, D1. So I would score myself a D1 for my profile. And here's a way to also think about development. If I'm in my profile here, these are typically some of the progression in behavior. So if you're in one of these quadrants, how do you get to a higher moral development mark there? And so these are just some of the things that we'll be able to talk about. But that gives you kind of an update or a highlight on what we're doing. So